In Pit Lane, proudly brought to you by Online Invent, websites, digital marketing and custom software. Yes, welcome everybody to another edition of In Pit Lane. And as you can see when on the wide shot, we've joined on the desk as per usual by my co-host Craig Doc Latigo. But also joining us tonight is a man behind, well, he's got a finger in just about every pie in Australian motorsport at the moment. You name it, TCR, Trans-Am, of course S5000. Here's Garry Rogers from Garry Rogers Motorsport. And we've got so much to talk about with Barry. There will be news. We'll be bringing you news from Formula One and, of course, all that happened at Phillip Island over the weekend. But right now, let's start with Garry Rogers. And Barry, thanks for joining us on the program. As I said, so many things that you're doing at the moment. How many fingers in how many pies have you got?
Oh, listen, Brett, look, as a family, obviously including my dad, Gary, we're very passionate about motorsport. And look, in recent years, the TCRs, as you mentioned at the start, Trans-Ams and the S5000s in particular, really been the team behind building those 18 cars that have been produced. So we're certainly, very heavily involved in the Australian Racing Group categories. It keeps us going. We love going racing. We love bringing young guys through. The categories allow us to bring some young guys through. They're, affordable type categories to get involved in. High-level motorsport, TCR being a global series. Trans-Ams, not dissimilar to a NASCAR out of the States, very similar type of car, and S5000's the fastest, noisiest, probably most dangerous cars in Australia, but, very exciting cars. Yeah.
I've got a billy cart that needs hybriding at the moment. Can you do that for me? It's fine to put GRM on the side of it for me.
We're not good with batteries yet. You never know. That might be next.
That is my next question then. What would be the next project if you want to dream on?
Look, we're always doing projects at work. I mean, last year during COVID, we dug out an old Monaro body shell, a new one that we happened to come across at work. You wonder how we didn't know we had it. But anyway, we've got some containers at the back of work that have got plenty of gear in them, and we built the last new Holden to leave Australia, is what we told everybody. But we might build another one this year. But we're always we're involved in motor racing. So anything that makes sense, we'll sort of get into. We do a bit of street work for people that on cars. We do all types of things. But really, it's motorsport that that we're passionate about. Our workers are passionate about it, and getting to the racetracks. If you're working motorsport, you want to be at the racetrack, and that's what we try and do as much as we can.
Let's talk about, first of all, S5000, you mentioned it. We've been following the project through, from the very early days with Chris Lambden and the whole sort of, the prototype and with Mike Ball and engineering. Yep. How did you become involved in not just, running race teams, but basically taking over the whole construction of those cars?
Yeah, really how it happened. Look, the category was linked to the ARG network, of which we'd got involved in, and at the end of 2019, when we really made the decision that we're going to get out of supercars, we actually it was at Newcastle the last round, and Garth Tander, who was driving for us at the time, drove the S5000 at that event as a display type thing at the Newcastle street track, and Dad and I were standing on the fence just watching it go around. We're not really open wheel. We're not open wheel people. We've never been involved in open wheelers before, watching it, and both sort of looked at it and made a couple of little comments about like how exciting and everything the car was. Anyway, that weekend finished, and that was the end of supercars for us. And we're driving down to Sydney that night for the Supercar awards night, and Dad and I were talking in the car on the way down, and a fellow by the name of Brian Boyd, who you probably see the company Pace, P-A-Y-C-E, sponsored a lot of motorsport over the years, and a current sponsor of a lot of motorsport. He was really the financier, the fellow behind it all that had got Chris. Chris was involved, but Brian was involved, and it all came together, and Brian was the one making it all happen. And we thought, these cars aren't going to happen unless someone grabs hold of it and does it. And Dad said, what do you think? We should have a go at this. And we went and saw Brian the next day in Sydney, on the Monday morning in Sydney, and said, listen, if you want these things to happen, we can do it. We'll take it over from here. We'll, from a financial perspective, we'll make it all happen from this point forward. He invested a lot to that point, and that's sort of how it happened. And
so, I mean, the chassis is now called the Rogers.
Yeah.
So what's the process? I mean, the chassis are built overseas, of course, the carbon fibre tubs. What's the process of taking them from that stage through to what we see on the tracks in Australia?
There's a lot of work that happened, and Mike Borland, you mentioned his name earlier. Mike did a tremendous job, and his group of workers at Borland's, because really it's an F3 tub that we get from Onroke in the US. It's a Ligier tub, and really probably the most, if you sort of said, demanding engineering aspect of the car was putting a V8 engine on the back of it, because obviously an F3 car doesn't have a V8 engine, and so the work that went into that to have the right plate mounted to the back of the tub that could cater for that V8.
The flexing as well too.
Yeah, correct. And you're not allowed to drill into the tub, any of that sort of thing. I mean, it's obviously it's a capsule, and so there was a lot of work that went into putting that plate in the back where the engine mounts to, and Mike was, that was a big part of what happened. One of the things that happened there, but really a big part of the whole car. So the tub comes from the States. The base engine is a Ford Coyote engine, very similar engine to what Supercar's looking at.
How many horsepower, Barry?
560 we've got them at. I mean, they can certainly get a lot more out of them. We have them at 560, about 9,000 kilometres between rebuilds. It's a sort of sub 20 grand.
So the power is adequate.
Power is adequate.
We're going to have to take a break. We're going to have to take a break now on Channel 31. But when we come back, we're going to learn more about S5000, TCR, and more at Garry Rogers Motorsport. You're watching In Pit Lane right here on Channel 31. We'll be back right after this break.
Get the phone ringing for your business with website development and SEO services from Online Invent. Visit onlineinvent.com.au.
Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Well, I guess tonight, as you saw earlier, was Barry Rogers from Garry Rogers Motorsport. And we spoke about S5000. I mean, the situation with the car count as well. It came at it got hit at the really wrong time, didn't it? With the whole COVID thing, it looked like there was the Tasman series was going to start. How much of a blow has that been in the development of S5000, especially internationally?
No, it definitely has been, Brett. I mean, look, COVID's affected a lot of things, obviously, around the world, and anything to do with entertainment, the type of industry that we're in, it's made it very difficult. But in the big scheme of things, you just got to press on. I mean, there's either pack them all up and give up, or you keep going. And this year, sort of 2022, I think it's a real opportunity. We've got the Grand Prix just around the corner. We've got a full field of cars committed to at the Grand Prix, so that's really going to be exciting, actually. And all local, majority of local drivers. There might be one international coming, but it's starting to stand on its own 2 feet, which is important. There's only so long you can prop things up. Well, having guys like Barrichello and those guys, Fisichella, those guys getting involved was fantastic, but obviously there's an expense to do that. And to get it going, it was important to do it. And then obviously we stalled, but we're away again, and we're certainly looking forward to it.
One thing that we saw last year, we saw a lot of young people, people like Ricky Capo and Lewis Leeds, young guys like that. A lot of them have not been able to come back. I mean, what do we do long term, to be able to keep those guys in? Because they've got a background in international racing, and they've obviously got potential and a lot of talent. But what they don't have is a budget. How do we solve that problem?
Yeah, look, budget's a big part of it. And look, regardless of what you do with motorsport, if you're a mum or dad at home and your son or daughter wants to go and race a go-kart, that's a lot more expensive than buying a cricket bat or a tennis racket or a pair of footy boots or a pair of netball shoes. So motorsport is an expensive sport from the day you start to the day you finish. And, the corporate dollar is so vital to it, and it's difficult, and often the sad part is the ones that can really drive can often the ones that find it even harder to get the money. It is a really tough gig, and what you can do is just present yourself well, try hard, work hard as a young driver, do everything you possibly can. What you do off the track, to be honest, it's more important than what you do on the track. If you can drive, and there's drivers at different levels, but if you've got that talent, the right people can really maximise that talent for you. But the work you do off the track certainly is a big, very, very essential part of becoming a successful race car driver.
Well, briefly, just on that then, what pathway would you suggest right now as what pathway to go? I mean, there's so many different avenues, but what would you think was probably ideally a good start through the system?
I'm a big fan of Formula Ford. Unfortunately, Formula Ford a few years ago when Motorsport Australia or CAMS at the time had the Formula 4s that came, Formula Ford sort of got shoveled back into the state series rather than national series. It's now worked its way back. I mean, I think to teach young drivers racecraft, respect for a race car, all the things that are important, to get speed out of a car, all the things that, you need to be able to be a successful race car driver. I think Formula Ford is the ultimate pathway. I mean, in recent years, you've got series like Hyundai XLs that certainly, you've some good drivers that come out of there. Young Cooper Webster that runs around.
Please tell me you're not building a Hyundai XL.
No.
Oh, thank God.
Garry hasn't gone that silly yet, but you never know. He's always got funny ideas.
There's still time.
That's right. But so Cooper
Except
Webster.
in Gary's place, it's going to be like Liam Hill's car. He'll end up having a 6-litre Chevy.
He doesn't need a hand with ideas.
No, that's right.
He's good at making his own.
Yeah, that's right. So what I was going to say. Yeah.
Where from with the Formula after the Formula Fords?
Yeah, I think once you if you get into a Formula Ford and have some success there, I mean, obviously the guys that get out of them then want to get into a more powerful type car. And people will think that I say because the series that we're in, but I think an S5000 is a car to go to. I mean, I know we got Super 2 and supercars is the ultimate aim of all young drivers, but you can run a 5000 for a season, probably a third of a budget of a Super 2 car. And when you say dollars are hard to get from sponsors, I think it's probably a good pathway. We need Motorsport Australia to get behind it though. The licensing issue is a problem. To get a super licence to race a supercar, really it's a bit of a closed shop at the moment where you must do Super 2. And I think for the good of Australian motorsport, that licence needs to be opened up, that if you're a talented driver and you're running in a high-performance car like an S5000, even a TCR, if you're running at the front there, you deserve a super licence. You still need a supercar team to want to pick you up and give you a drive along the way, but I think the licence needs to be sorted out here.
Funny you mentioned TCR. I mean, quite a few years ago now, we spoke with your dad, with Garry at Phillip Island, and it was just about the time sort of TCR was coming in. He was still involved in supercars. Yeah. Then he was saying, even then, he said, these things make sense. I really like these. I mean, that's another category that's sort of been sort of stopped a little bit and hindered by the whole COVID thing. How big do you think they can get when you consider all of the different manufacturers? Because pretty much every manufacturer's got a dog in that fight.
Yeah, they have. Look, it's a global category. So, for a young driver coming through, if he's got ambitions of racing overseas, it's a category to get involved in because you can end up overseas. And a lot of the young guys want to get over to Europe or race somewhere different rather than Australia. And the category offers that to the drivers. I mean, they're interesting little cars, It's funny when you get a driver out of one. We had James Golding drive one recently. He had never driven one until we were down in Tassie a couple of months ago doing a driver combine for young drivers. He got out of it with the biggest smile on his face and said, I can't believe how awesome these little cars are. I mean, they are really, they are fun cars to race.
I think James Courtney was saying just recently, he raced on the weekend at Phillip Island, but also from Tasmania, was saying that he was really surprised at just how difficult it was to be fast in those things.
Is that Fabian Coulthard?
Yeah. Fabian, sorry.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And Lee Holsworth.
We might try James Courtney next.
And Lee Holsworth said, it's a lot of fun, etc., but you've got to be able to tame it as well, though, too.
Look at the Bathurst podium from last year. Chaz Mossett did TCR, won Bathurst. Lee Holsworth, who's his teammate, running TCR series all year.
Yeah. But I remember on the day he said, I ran the thing, I couldn't get a handle on it. Yep. And I just tried something different and it just clicked.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. No, they're different. And then, look, James Moffat that has run with us for a few years, he likes to keep, his idea of doing it just keeps him sharp for the supercar, So, there's a lot of cars to race out there. There's 24 supercars or 25 supercars on the grid, so you're limited to how many people can race them. We need other categories and
And that's where the other talent's got to be.
That's it.
You mentioned the young drivers that come to. I mean, Garry Rogers Motorsport is famous for the young talent that you've discovered and developed over the years, going back to the days of Jamie Whincup, Steve Richards. You go back. One of the philosophies that Garry Rogers Motorsport always seems to be that the drivers need to be hands-on. I mean, I remember sort of ringing the workshop a couple of times and asking for someone that's like, okay, it's Garth here, or it's or it's Steve Richards. So, I mean, why is that important?
Well,
do you think?
Look, I think what you said, they've got to be grounded. There's no point having a driver that just pulls up with his helmet under his arm and think he's going to get the rest of the team to really want to work for him. It's important for the guys in the workshop who work on their cars to build a relationship with the driver and the driver to build a relationship with them. So when they get to the track and things don't go quite right, those guys feel that they want to make it happen for this driver. They really want to get it going. And you know, it's really important for the development of a driver to understand what goes into getting a car to a track. And if you just arrive at the track with your helmet under your arm, you'll never know the work and effort that was required to get it there.
Well, good luck with all of the projects for this year. I mean, it's a busy year ahead. Hang around for a moment because we're going to take you to another break here on Channel 31, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap up with Barry Rogers, and also we'll hear from music from our special guest, Fennec. That's in Pit Lane right after this break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on the Facebook page or watching on In Pit Lane's YouTube channel on demand later in the week, then there's the details for Fennec for social. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram at Fennec Band, and also check their music on Spotify. I did that today myself while I was coming in on the train, so you can check out them on Spotify. And right now you'll probably hear this song, and it is called The Night. Ladies and gentlemen, Fennec.
Covered in sheer and darkness, my mind blinded by a blanket on my head, as black as the night, which once infested it. Their pastures are black. I feel a sense of belief for what is now. The future can only be bright for a lively life. Close to dawn, things start to move, things start to live. The sun about to glare down upon my restless face. I'll be awake again. By the moon, which shows sweet
Welcome back to In Pit Lane. Now, I hope that you will take the opportunity to join us live every Thursday night at 9 o'clock for something we call Full Course Yellow. It's just an opportunity for a few of us to get together live every Thursday night. And talk about the week of motorsport. It's on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and, of course, here on Facebook as well. If you're watching us on Facebook right now, and as I said, we'd love you to be a part of it. We'd love you to make contributions. We read out your contributions. Most of them anyway. The clean ones, the ones that are not libelous, and there's a lot of them that are libelous. But anyway, join us every Thursday night for that Full Course Yellow. Barry, let's wrapping up just quickly before we go to the news. Thanks for coming in. What are the long-term plans? I mean, where do you see Garry Rogers Motorsport being in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, look, I don't know. Look, seriously, we just get up every morning, we go to work, we work hard. We enjoy going motor racing. Who knows where it's all going to end up? But I don't know. I really couldn't give you a real answer on that, apart from we'll be doing something and we'll be doing our best. We'll be, you brought up earlier, bringing young people through, having some fun. We like to have a bit of fun along the way. It's an important part of the way we work. We like when there's time to be serious, we'll be serious, but we also like to, provide a good bit of entertainment for our people and the fans here.
Well, good luck with whatever you're doing now. It's a great opportunity. Thanks for coming in and joining us now. Barry Rogers, thanks for joining us in Pit Lane.
No worries at all. Thanks, guys.
And now we're going to take you to wrap up. It's been a big weekend of motorsport. Formula One is back. And, of course, Phillip Island was in action as well. This is the In Pit Lane Motorsport News. Fabian Coulthard has stunned the series regulars by taking the win in last weekend's TCR round at Phillip Island. Coulthard won both Sunday's races in his Honda Civic to lead home the Peugeots of Dylan O'Keefe and Jordan Cox. Saturday's first race saw a win to the Audi of Jay Hansen. Reigning Gold Star champion Joey Mawson was victorious in the S5000s. A second place to James Golding in race 1 and a win on Sunday secured the New South Welshman overall points ahead of Golding, with Cooper Webster again showing his fondness for Phillip Island, rounding out the final step of the podium. Chaz Mostert continued his recent run of winning form on Saturday, winning the first GT World Challenge Australia race alongside Liam Talbot as Audis dominated the weekend. Sunday's race saw a win for German driver Christopher Mies, sharing with South Australian Yasser Shahin. The two Audis ending the weekend tied on points. Tasmanian Owen Kelly won 2 races over the weekend to edge out last week's guest on In Pit Lane, and race 3 winner Nathan Hearn as Mustangs dominated the Trans-Am series. Valentino Astuti dominated with 3 from 3 in Formula Ford, while Jordan Caruso took the honours in the National Sports Sedan series. Charles Leclerc has led home a Ferrari 1-2 in the opening round of this year's World Championship under lights in Bahrain. Starting from pole, Leclerc had a race-long battle with world champion Max Verstappen before the Red Bull driver succumbed to mechanical problems to leave Carlos Sainz to take a second for a Ferrari Quinella. Lewis Hamilton was third. It was a tough weekend for Australia's Dan Ricciardo with a 14th place, but at least he was 1 place ahead of teammate Lando Norris. Scott McLaughlin just failed to hold out teammate Joseph Newgarden, who gave Penske Racing their 600th IndyCar win. Newgarden passed the Kiwi on the final lap to win by less than half a second. Third place went to Marcus Ericsson. Miguel Oliveira put on a masterclass in wet conditions to claim victory in last Sunday's Indonesian MotoGP. Reigning world champion Fabio Quartararo raced through the field to second for his first podium of the season, ahead of compatriot Johan Zarco in third. Aussie Jack Miller just missed out on the podium with 4th place. The win for Oliveira sees KTM head the constructors' standings for the first time ever in MotoGP. A record 46 lead changes by 20 different drivers. Last weekend's NASCAR race at Atlanta was certainly a thriller. In the end, though, it was William Byron who held on for the final 14 laps to take the checkered flag and become the 5th different winner this season. The consistent Ross Chastain was second, ahead of Kurt Busch. And that's a very rapid In Pit Lane Motorsport news for Tuesday, March the 22nd, 2022. We'll have more news at a more leisurely pace next week. Now, welcome back. Joining us tonight to take us out is Melbourne band Fennec, and you can catch them. On their social media. You can catch them on Spotify. You can find them all over the place. So they're playing around Melbourne as well. But they're going to take us out tonight with a song called "The Freezing Trees." Not the flaming trees, the freezing trees. So, ladies and gentlemen, until we see you next week, from all of us on In Pit Lane, thanks for joining us, and to take us out, this is Fennec and "The Freezing Trees." Good night.
When you're alone, walking down that lonely road, staring at a scary toad, asking to produce a lively mode, a mode of pure load, to produce a mode of transport, to reach a final destination. Oh, just outside this road, there are trees that sway in their breeze. Their wind is blowing to make you freeze. I was standing with you on my knees. If I must to make it home. And we're finally together once more. I'll tell you stories forbidden, Lord. Oh, stories will melt you down into a ship I can hold around while life freezes to the ground. Oh, just outside this road, the wind is blowing to make you freeze. The trees that sway in the breeze. I was standing with you on my knees. If I must to make it home. Those stories that I've taught you have stalled those freezing trees who would do harm to your knees. Oh, just outside this road,